when she was young, she heard her parents yelling at her siblings and decided to keep quiet because that wasn't safe. You know, the siblings would speak up, and the parents would hit them or yell at them or whatever drama was going on. And so she made that decision that it's safer to shut up. And then we tap on the side of the hand first of all. So this part's called the setup. That's it. Perfect. It's easier to demonstrate when you don't have hair. And just
or headphones.
yes, or headphones. And just tune in and say, all this anxiety in my stomach.
All this anxiety in my stomach.
And tune into where you feel it and just say, all this anxiety in my chest or anxiety in my stomach. That's it. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety. Welcome back, Russell. Thank you for coming on today and approaching me for an interview in relation to anxiety, its impact, and what we can do about it. Russell Cunningham is from the Australian Institute of Self-Development. Russell's quite learned in the area of NLP. He's an NLP trainer and the creator and practitioner trainer of Alpha Repatterning, and also emotional freedom technique, EFT. So, Russell, what have you got for us today on anxiety? Because I've been really excited about this up and coming interview so that our listeners can really get a handle on what's going on.
Thanks, Freddie. What I've noticed in recent years is that the general ambient level of anxiety has been increasing. You know, we've got all this the war and conflict at the moment. Even prior to that, with COVID and the restrictions and the isolation, all this triggered people's underlying anxiety levels. So the way I see it, most people have been running a low level of anxiety most of the time and don't even realize that there's another way of being. You know, we have this little bit of tension going on all the time. But when we have external things coming up, that will tend to trigger us to high levels. And even the simple little things, you know, I was with a friend and we've been organising a group get-together, a group that I do some sports activities and swimming with. And one of the people that was organising it had organised a venue that wasn't suitable for some of the other people. Mm-hmm. And she'd sent a message, but not really expressed how she felt because she was afraid of how the other person might respond. Yeah, okay. And so that little bit of anxiety that gets us worried about how the other person is going to respond then gets us not really speaking the truth, but trying to over sugarcoat it. Then the other person doesn't quite get the message, and this leads to an escalation of misunderstanding and conflict. That's just one little level that it works at. We also have a lot of people whose business or career is stuck at a certain level. You know, they feel, they know they could be doing something better, but what's here is comfortable, and there's that anxiety that's stopping them from moving forward. Even in relationships, there are people who are either stuck in a relationship that's not working for them, and they're too anxious about being alone. They're afraid of being lonely, so they stay in a relationship that's not tenable, or others who won't even go in a relationship. They say, oh, look, I'm more comfortable by myself. I can do my own thing when I want. Really? What's really going on behind that is there's a fear, in most cases, there's a fear of commitment, there's a fear of the conflict that they had in past relationships. So most of us have this underlying background level of anxiety, and then when situations come up, that triggers us to a high level, which is really difficult.
I guess our modern culture is all part of the process. I mean, the way we are absolutely bombarded with the ideas that we live in lack, that we don't have certain things, we don't have certain outcomes, you know, and for us to feel fulfilled and accepted in society and deemed a success, there's so much we need to have and be, and that would create incredible anxiety for people because they don't measure up. They're never enough. They're never enough. They're never enough. They don't have enough. They don't have enough. So there's this constant battle of striving to bring about an equilibrium of peace that just doesn't exist. And in most cases, it's not even attainable. So we as a society are actually impacted with stress. I guess part of the big challenge that I see is that, how would I put it? It's almost as if keeping us distracted and under anxiety makes us more susceptible to marketing and submission.
Absolutely. I remember watching Dan Gilbert talking on happiness, and he was saying that a mall full of Zen monks will not turn the wheels of industry. You know, if we're all at total peace as we are, what is there to drive us? Why are we going to work 50 hours a week in a job? And of course, it's not healthy working 50 hours a week in any job. But there's a lot of pressure these days to get us to do more. And all the marketing, the message of all marketing is you're not good enough as you are. Therefore, you need this product or this other gadget so you can be happy. And you buy that product and you're happy for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe even a day. And then after a while, that brand new car that you were so excited to get has got another scratch, and it's just another car, and you know, and there's sand on the floor, and it's just a way to get from A to B. And then you're looking for the next hit.
I think looking for the next hit's what it's all about. I mean, all these things have a place in our life. I mean, I have a nice car and I enjoy it. There's not a problem there. And having things and working for things are okay. But what it is it just doesn't satisfy. Someone once said to me, and it was a very profound statement, they said, if one apple doesn't satisfy, a whole truckload won't. And
absolutely.
And what I've realized is that it comes down to attachment. It's great to reach out and desire things, but when you're attached to the outcome and you feel that there's going to be a problem there. Someone showed me something once. It's quite profound. They held up something like this, and they said, "This is most people, right? And when they're like this, it gets pried out of their hands and they lose it. But what if you just let it go? It's still there." So, you know, it's this attachment, it's this grasping, it's this needing to possess. Like even in relationships, I call some relationships possessionships rather than relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
My other half, which adds up, two halves equal a quarter to me because there's something missing from both people. Only two complete people make a whole. But, you know, it's very interesting that what anxiety can do to people's level of health. It can cause sleep deprivation. It can cause conflict in relationships. It can cause all sorts of metabolic issues and gut issues. It can cause mental brain fog. The impact that I have seen through anxiety, and I've experienced anxiety myself. I'm quite pleased to say I don't experience it now at all, really. I have done a lot of work to get away from feeling anxious. And I've only been in that peaceful zone for a couple of years. Prior to that, it's been a long time doing battle with anxiety. But what I realized is if you don't care about all these things at some level, life's got no leverage on you.
Absolutely. So let's look at what's behind the caring about that.
Okay.
Because we're all looking to get back something that we've lost.
Yeah.
At some level. So now, in psychology, there's been this endless discussion on nature versus nurture. And there's always, to some degree, before we came into this world, there is an essence that is who we are. And that personality, that persona has different strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, from the moment of conception, we could argue, the environment is affecting us. And, you know, there's been a lot of research in recent years showing how stress that our parents feel, particularly our mother, but both parents to some degree, feel in the time that we're in the womb impacts our birth and impacts how we feel later in life. You know, I've worked with a number of people who've had serious anger triggered by something that's happened now, but the real cause is something that happened when they were 2 or 5 or 1 or a birth or in the womb. And this sets us up now for being anxious. The person I told you about who was having trouble expressing themselves about the situation with the meeting venue confided in me that when she was young, she heard her parents yelling at her siblings and decided to keep quiet because that wasn't safe. You know, the siblings would speak up, and the parents would hit them or yell at them or whatever drama was going on. And so she made that decision when she was 1 or 2 or 3 that it's safer to shut up and not express how you feel.
I guess anxiety seems to me to be very related to trauma, especially childhood trauma. And I notice with some people with anxiety, they get stuck in loop thinking, you know, if then this, because that. So therefore they can't take action. The anxiety actually freezes them. They go that, you know, it can seem or look like depression, but I notice when someone gets anxious and anxiety and heads towards panic attacks or just immobility to get frozen. So what sort of remedies or actions can people take to deal with their anxiety? Because it is so prevalent, as you said. I've noticed it in almost every individual I encounter. There's levels of anxiety. They vary, but for some, they're crippling. They're stifling to them.
Yes, and sometimes it's situational. We would all have some situations that would bring up anxiety. If we were walking down a dark street at 2 a.m. and we saw a gang of 20 people wearing hoodies walking towards us, there's not many people that are going, "Oh, this is going to be fun." You know, most of us will be going, "Where's the exit? You know, what's going on?" So but that's a situational thing, and if you're not anxious, you will respond better to that situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember years ago, it was actually at an Anthony Robbins workshop in Sydney, probably 25, 6 years, something like that, years ago. And, you know, they always go way later. They say they're going to finish at 9 or 10 and you're still going at 1:30 in the morning. And I remember I went to a 7-Eleven to get something to eat, and I must have had tourist stamped on my forehead. You know, I was wearing different clothes to what most of the locals would have been wearing, and I had a leather bum bag on with my wallet and so on in it. As I'm walking back from the 7-Eleven, I became aware that there was a group of people walking behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed my angle a bit so that I could see in the reflection of a window without looking back. And I could see there were 6 rather big guys walking behind me. I thought, this doesn't feel quite comfortable. So I lengthened my stride so I could put my distance between them without them realizing that I'd sped up. Then I heard them whistle across to people on the other side of the road, and suddenly they were joined by another group. Now there was 10 or 15 of them behind me, and I'm going, this is not good. You know, and I've got to say, this is in one of the seediest areas of Sydney. You know, it was back in the day, I got the cheapest accommodation, which was $20 a night.
Was that anywhere near the Hordern Pavilion? Was that where it was at?
This was it was the George Hotel in George Street.
I mean the Anthony Robbins conference. Was it at the Hordern Pavilion?
Could have been. I can't recall.
And everyone had their water bottles flicking water everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, here's the interesting thing. Because I wasn't anxious, my awareness was there. I had that expanded awareness. I picked it up. I was able to take action. I put some distance between me, and I was able to get into my hotel. Now, these hotels don't have a doorman at night, so you get into the hotel, and I ran up the first flight of stairs. The door behind me began to close, and one of these guys barged the door open just before it locked. And I thought, wow, they really are out to get me. But then I just double paced to the next door and locked the door to my floor, and I was safe. But here's the thing. Yes, there was some concern there, but I wasn't overcome by fear. An anxious person is going to be sensing they're under attack all the time. So when something is really there, they're not likely to respond in the most effective, in the safest way.
Mm-hmm. And it would seem like, well, how would I put it? A rabbit with its eyes in the headlights, you know, where it's frozen. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when someone has that fear, and you can see it in the physiology, you know, there's been muggers and and persecutors and narcissists know how to pick their victims.
Yep.
You know, if you're looking for someone to, if a mugger was looking for someone to mug, and one person's walking bright, straight, briskly down they're not going to pick them. They're looking for the one whose eyes are downcast and they're hunched and looking like they're in fear, looking like they're going to be an easy target.
Yeah, I guess that's prevalent in the animal kingdom too. You know, you notice with seagulls, if one of them's injured or down, you know, the others sort of peck them to bits.
The others will get them. Yeah.
So given that anxiety is so prevalent, what are some actions that people can take to alleviate that anxiety or get control over it, or some sort of personal mastery? What do you?
Well, let's look at the most common things people do. The most common things people do is one is try to avoid the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll stick with their own personal group of friends. They'll go to the same places all the time. They'll avoid new experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the opposite will expand yourself. So if you really want to break out, you need to push yourself to be doing things that are a little bit of a challenge.
Outside your comfort zone.
Outside your comfort zone. But
minimally.
But minimally, yes. So the well-meaning friend that throws a spider on someone to prove that spiders aren't really dangerous is going to exacerbate their fear at this level to a full-blown phobia.
Mm.
But if we know that we're afraid of spiders and we gradually approach one, that can help. The challenge is, though, that most of those real fears and phobias have causes that are way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And the most effective way is to thoroughly resolve those. And most of the time I find EFT and Alpha Repatterning are the most effective tools I've found for helping people with anxiety. So the first is to stop avoiding it and stop the distractions. So people with social anxiety will divert their social life to Facebook because it's safer. No one on Facebook's going to slap you across the face or yell at you. You know, you can if they do, you can just block them. So avoid the substitutes, avoid the alcohol, the drugs, the candy, the sugar, the lollies, the ice cream, the chips, whatever junk foods that we use to suppress that anxiety. You know, it was interesting a while ago. I saw this article about they've found a link between high cortisol levels, and cortisol is the stress hormone that's associated with anxiety, and they found a strong correlation between that and obesity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's obvious. We know that people tend to comfort eat.
Yeah.
So we have a level of anxiety, we eat, we feel comfortable for that moment, and then 10 minutes later, we're eating again. So they were looking for a drug to suppress cortisol levels. No, totally wrong approach. You need to resolve the anxiety, the stress that's causing the cortisol to go up. And then people don't need the chocolate, the sugar, the ice cream, the potato cakes or the donuts or whatever it is they're eating.
So given that anxiety is so prevalent and we all encounter it, one is to identify it's a problem to you. I mean, I have levels of challenge that could be masked as temporary or situational anxiety, and I'm good with it. I mean, it's a warning system, it's a coping mechanism, and it doesn't distract me. But if it got to a level where it distract me, like it may have in the past, I would seek out some solutions. What's 3 good processes that people could do when they recognize that anxiety is an issue and a limiting factor in their life? What's some ways they can approach some remedies?
Okay, so first of all, be aware and avoid the avoidance.
Avoid the avoidance. Okay.
Avoid the avoidance. So when you find yourself going, oh, I don't really feel like going out tonight, I think I'll just sit in and surf the net or watch something on TV or whatever, then push yourself to go out and do something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really important one. Avoid the avoidance and avoid the suppressants, the alcohol, the junk food, the all those distractions. You know, the shopaholism, the workaholism, all the aholisms, all the obsessions. We need to avoid those. Probably one of the best things we can do, though, is learn EFT, learn how to tap. And I want to go through a little basic round with everyone right now, just so we have an idea.
Yep.
So EFT works best if we focus on something very specific. If I was in a coaching session with someone now who had anxiety, I would say, tell me about something that triggers your anxiety. And they might say, oh, when my colleague or boss yelled at me at work, or when I received a customer complaint, or when I was driving and I heard the police siren behind me. So I get them to think about a very specific one-off time and tune into where they feel that anxiety or fear or worry or whatever they feel in their body. Now, it's interesting. You can feel emotions anywhere, but most commonly anxiety is either felt in the chest or heart or in the stomach, sometimes in the lower belly, but usually it's in there. However, if my client says, I feel anxiety in my left earlobe, well, we'll use that. But these are the most common places. And interestingly, we even have sayings around that, don't we? People say, it scared the crap out of me, or I haven't got the guts for that, or my stomach churned, or I had butterflies in my stomach.
Yep. Or I had a pain in my heart, or something like that.
Yeah, or my heart missed a beat.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was so scary, my heart missed a beat. So we're actually aware that this is where we feel these emotions, which of course is why just talking about it and thinking about it doesn't change it. We've got to resolve something at a physical level. So if someone's now, I just want to put a qualifier here. This is not an exercise for someone who has significant trauma or PTSD. If you have significant trauma or PTSD, some big challenging issues, find the best coach, the best therapist you can find, and work with them one-on-one. That's not something to be doing with self-help of any kind. But for those of us that have that general level of anxiety that, I'm going out to this event tonight, there's going to be a lot of people there I don't know, I feel a little bit uneasy. Or I want to ask my boss for a rise and I'm not sure about that. Or I've got to tell my employee that I've got to let them go, and I can't handle that.
Or in my case, I monitor my weight pretty carefully, and I know that sometimes, especially around Christmas, you get caught up, and all of a sudden the scale starts jumping up a K or two, and you go, "Oh my God!" I've reversed what I've created, and then that will create an anxiety. It's not anything that I can't handle, but then I have to apply process to reduce the level of stress that information has fed back to me if there's great weight change shifts and things like that.
Actually, and there's an interesting one on that. There's a lot of people who will go to a Christmas event and someone say, well, come on, have some of the cake. It's Christmas. It's Christmas pudding. You have to have some Christmas pudding. And I say to them, what is it in you that makes you have to have me eat something that I don't want to eat? Because I know that Christmas pudding might taste nice, but it'll taste nice for 20 seconds and I'll have a feeling for the next day or so.
Or it's an antithesis to your goals. It's
the antithesis to the goal. I mean, my body, because I eat pretty good food all the time, if I eat something that's a little bit off, my body tells me.
Yeah. I know at the badminton last night, they had this gigantic black forest cake. It was, I don't know, about 2 foot wide and whatever. And they're saying, have a piece, it's only a piece, it's only a cake. And I'm going, yeah, but look at all that icing and sugar and cream. And I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And they said, you could have half a slice. I said, that's the problem. That's the problem. If I could just have half a slice, it'd be okay. But I said, go away, go.
Yeah. What do they say in AA? One is too many and 100 is not enough.
Yeah. Well,
so let's get focused on this and do an exercise here. So what I'd like everyone to do is think about some specific thing that you feel some anxiety or tension about. And just notice where you feel that in your body. Maybe there's an uncomfortable conversation you need to have with someone you care about. Maybe you need to tell your boss you no longer want to work there. Maybe there's some bills that are coming up and you're worried about that. Whatever it is, tune into that fear or anxiety, and where do you feel it in your body? and give that feeling a score out of 10. So maybe I think about giving a talk in front of a whole group of people at work, and I get a churning feeling in my tummy that's a 7 or 8 out of 10. Or maybe I think about an uncomfortable conversation I need to have with my partner or my housemate, and my heart starts to feel tight, and that's a 4 out of 10, whatever it is. Or maybe I think about that time when I was driving down the road and the police sirens came up, and I had this 8 out of 10 anxiety in my chest and throat. And tune into that specifically. And then with EFT, what we do is we use words to tune us into the specific problem or issue. And then we tap on the side of the hand first of all. So this part's called the setup. And we'll tap here. Now, I'm going to just say some typical things. I want you to say to yourself what is specific to you. So I might say, even though I have this churning anxiety in my stomach, I accept myself as much as I can. Or even though my heart is racing when I think about what's about to happen, I accept myself as much as I can. Or even though I'm worried about all the expenses coming up, I accept myself. That's right. So that's what we call the setup. We talk about the problem and we talk about acceptance while we tap on the side of the hand, either hand. And then the other points we tap on, we start with the center top of the head. If we draw a line above our ears, it's where those lines would meet in the center line of our head. And we can tap on that with one hand or two if that feels more balanced. That's it. Perfect. It's easier to demonstrate when you don't have hair. And just
or headphones.
Yes, or headphones. And then just tune in and say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Good. Then the next point, I'll take my glasses off just to make it easier to demonstrate, is on the inside of the eyebrows, just above the bridge of the nose. And again, we can tap just one side or we can tap both sides. And just tune in and say, all this anxiety in my stomach.
All this anxiety in my stomach.
Good. And then the next point is on the bone right next to the corner of the eye. Now, if you have long fingernails, don't do yourself damage here. Tap with the pads of your fingers. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Good. Then the next point is directly below the eyeball, and it's about 2 centimeters or 1 inch below the pupil on the cheekbone here, just to the side of the nose. And tune into where you feel it and just say, all this anxiety in my chest or anxiety in my stomach.
All this anxiety in my chest and my stomach.
Good. Then the next point is just below the nose. And say, all this anxiety in my stomach.
All this anxiety in my stomach.
Good. Then the next point is just below the lip. They call it the chin point, but it's not down here. It's below the lip in the little valley, just below the lip. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Good. Then the next point is just below the collarbone. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Now, the next point is a hand's width below the armpit on the side of the rib cage there, about in line with where the seam of your shirt or jumper might be. That's it. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Good. And then we'll add in another point. On the back of the hand, there's a groove between the knuckle of the baby finger and the ring finger. Let's just tap on there and say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
And then back to the side of the hand, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
On the top of the head, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
And then in the eyebrow point on the inside of the eyebrows, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
On the side of the eye, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Under the eye, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Under the nose, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
In the crease of the chin, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Under the collarbone, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Under the arm, all this anxiety. Good. Now, once you've done that, I want you to tune into that specific thing that you are thinking out of and just note what's the anxiety now out of 10. Now, if we've been specific, for most people that will reduce it to maybe half, maybe even eliminate it completely.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, you just keep repeating that process, focusing on using words that describe the specific feeling that you're feeling in your body and the specific event that that's about, until thinking about that event doesn't bring any charge.
That's incredible. I noticed that I've attended some of Russell's trainings and done some EFT practice, and I used it in my weight loss journey when I was diminishing my weight and I came against barriers that I couldn't cross. I started to use the tapping quite frequently and done it every day for about a month. So it certainly is useful in all the specific areas of blockages and processes. I guess it's almost like a spiritual practice. You can take it into every area where you feel uncomfortable, is a good word.
Absolutely. And you mentioned weight loss. That's a classic where most people with weight issues have had times that they've gone on a diet or exercise program, they've done something and they've dropped their weight, and then they'll almost always get to a point where they plateau and they're no longer going down. And what often happens from there is they feel defeated, they give up, and often they bounce back to a weight even higher than what they were before. And what's stopping them from getting through that is those limiting beliefs and the fears and the anxieties. And so that's why EFT has been shown to be so effective on weight loss and addictions as well as anxiety, because it resolves the underlying anxiety that causes the overeating.
Wow. Well, how do people get in touch with you, Russell? For these sort of things, because I know I've referred a few people to you. So tell people a little bit about your setup.
Well, probably the easiest would just be to contact me through the website, selfdevelopment.com.au.
Mm-hmm.
You can contact me there, or my phone number is on there anyway. You can just call me directly. It's probably the easiest. These days, emails sometimes can get a bit challenging. I don't know. Do you get 100 spam emails every day and then spend so much time sorting through the junk that it's not funny?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, we're quite happy to put all your contact details in the footnotes of this video. And I just want to thank you for your time coming on and sharing these insights, because I believe anxiety is so prevalent that people have been afraid to reach out, or they've been unaware that they've got a problem, or unaware of even to talk to somebody about it. So if you're suffering out there of anxiety, I really highly recommend to give Russell a call, at least talk about it, and it can set you on a journey of becoming self-aware. There's a movie back in the days of old with Arnie Schwarzenegger in it called Predator. And the interesting metaphor I took away from that is the alien creature was beating the crap out of Arnie, and Arnie was taking it, right? But it wasn't until he found a way to see the invisible creature he could fight it. And then
Yes.
that's how he defeated it. And I always think of that within myself, that there's so much in the don't know that we don't know area. And anxiety fits in that category a lot, where people think, I think I'm depressed, or I'm under a lot of stress. And say, well, yes, but if you're specific, there's so many descriptor words to your suffering, and anxiety is probably a descriptor that people don't understand the nuances and the definitions of it. So if you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, and you're finding you're getting anxious in social situations, in work situations, I would highly recommend you seek Russell out and get some EFT practicing underway, because it's not his only tools in the toolbox. Russell is a very learned and educated man with helping people through dilemma. Russell, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time.
Thanks, Freddie.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.